Good morning, people. Just after 6:30 on the Tuesday morning, following the holiday weekend, decided it's a good time to start my morning motivation. Today's not a running day. Today was more of a home gym, doing push-ups, sit-ups, few crunches, some curls. Um, but this big head, once I get alone and isolated, thoughts start running through it. It's not big for no reason. It's got to house this big brain. But Morning motivation this morning is about being patient. The Bible talks about patience being a virtue, and one of the essential virtues I think is necessary in life. So, as you're going through your journey, it doesn't happen overnight. A lot of those people come up with those pyramid schemes and get rich quick type situations, and it seems like that only works for the people at the top, and the people that's below them that's building that pyramid is the ones doing all the work and reaping none of the benefits. So, if you're looking for something that's an overnight success, this ain't that. And it's going to take work. It's going to take a long time. It's going to require you to be patient and be able to love yourself enough to say no to some things. Not just accepting what people want you to have, but seeking what you want. You know, a lot of times we get in a rush and we start doing things based off what's available, not what we want or what we desire. So some of the tips as I was sitting here doing my push-ups and sit-ups on how do you know the difference between if you're being patient or you just not having enough movement to attain your goal or to get what you really want. And as I was thinking, that could be one of the things that's a deciding factor for people because some people call themselves being patient, but they're not putting in the work that it takes to get closer. Some people are putting in the work, but you know, they settle for the first thing that's available, thinking, that's their blessing. So sometimes you got to have the ability to say no, not only to other people but to yourself. The ability to say no to some of those impulses, some of those things that are more of a distraction than they are a benefit. So if you feel like you're rushing and you feel like you got to make that decision right away, or it's going to be, the last time they ever offering this is the best deal ever. Art Van just went out of business. I think they went out of business because every week they had a sale that was the first ever. They tried to lower the prices, but it was just a deception to get you in the store. And you thinking that is advertised as one thing, and you get it home is something completely different. So if you feel like you're rushing and you feel like it's in a hurry to make that decision and you don't have all the information, but then there's a contradictory side to that because one of my favorite leaders, Colin Powell, he had that 80-20 rule. And his rule was that leaders make decisions off 20% information, and those were the producers. And then the consumers come in, they try to get around that 80 to 90% information before they make that decision. And they find themselves last in the game. So you got to have that balance enough to know, are you going too fast or are you going too slow? So um, one of the things is to decide what you really want. Is it something that you're seeking, or is it something you're being sold? Because seeking is something that's internal. You got this internal motivation to decide, hey, I want to do A, B, and C. And you already decided. You don't need no external counsel on something that's your dream, is your goal, is something you're seeking. Something that's being sold to you is different. It's mean like somebody's trying to convince you of the benefits of this. Like you are not already aware of it. So when somebody's trying to sell you something, you got to realize, is it connected to something I was seeking, or is it something that's just available? You ever go to a store or something and you realize that the thing you were after, they're out of. But some smooth, slick talking salesman say, hey, we don't have that, but this is the next best thing, or this is the next step up. And now you in a position of the lack of information, and you're dependent on this individual to give you that. A lot of car salesmen, furniture salesmen, they're good. They try to be slick to a can of oil. They'll try to sell, an iceberg some water. So you got to be careful. Is it connected to what you're seeking, or is it something, that you're being sold? And then the other thing is the ability to walk away and know that you did the right thing. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Be comfortable with not taking advantage of the latest sale. You know, if you got this goal to start budgeting and saving money and you go in the store and this item's on sale, I remember my mentor used to tell me, he says, it's not 30% off. You spent 70% more than you were planning on spending. So you got to use that psychology to understand, is it connected to your goal or is it taking you further away? So those are some things to keep in mind. And then also it's the rationale behind it, your motivation behind it. Is it internal motivation, as I mentioned, something you're seeking, or is it something that you're using to try to flatter or impress people? It's a status thing. I'll give a quick story. You know, I got stories for you all, stories for days. But I was in the process of buying my first boat this weekend. It was a holiday weekend, the week after my birthday, and I was really looking forward to getting on the water. Just bought a house off the water, and I needed the boat to complete that. So I picked the boat out, and there were some things that I wanted done on there. So it was supposed to be delivered on my birthday, May 15th, but they didn't have it done. So I was like, all right, I'll wait another week for you all to get it straight. So I go there last Friday to pick up my boat, and as soon as I get there, they start telling me, hey, we didn't have time to install the radio. We didn't have time to install the depth finder. And as they're pulling it out of the garage to put it in the water, I noticed it didn't have the Bimini cover on there either. I was like, what about the cover? And he was like, all right, this is what we're going to do. You're going to put it in the water, take a little water tour on it, and then I'll look and see where the cover is when you get back. So we take it out on the river, and man, I'm telling you, sitting behind that boat, it was a lot of temptation. I'm driving it, all right, it doesn't have the radio. Okay, maybe I can overlook that. They said I can bring it back the next week. It doesn't have the depth finder, and it's like, all right, man, okay, I'll just go slow, just navigate, learn the river. And then we get through the channel, we get to pull up to my house, and he shows me that it's going to fit just right. And then we pull off and we go back to the marina. And when we get back to the marina, he's like, hey, come to find out, it doesn't come with a cover. I said, what? Let's check this paperwork. I had ordered it with a cover. And, that was kind of my third strike. It's like, all right, you didn't have the radio. You didn't have the Bimini. You didn't have the depth finder. Now you don't have the Bimini cover. Man, this 3 strikes. Sometimes, it's time for the next batter up. So he was like, all right, what you can do is we can give you a good deal, another $800, we get you a cover, and then you bring the boat back after the holiday weekend. And then we can get you all squared away. And it was like, but you'll have it for the weekend. You can go out on the water, have a good time, and do this and that. But I made up my mind. I says, you know what? There's a saying out there, and this is what I told the salesman. I says, when you want something bad, that's exactly how you're going to get it, bad. So don't ever want something so bad that you end up getting it bad. So I said, nah, you know what? I'd rather wait and get it right than rush and get it wrong. So I tell you what, since this boat doesn't come with that, why don't we just order me one from the manufacturer, and then we'll go from there. So he said, all right, but it's going to take 6 weeks. It's going to take you a long time to get it situated. And you're going to be wasting some times and you won't be able to get out there on the water. And that's what I talk about, being patient. So we started putting in the numbers and ordering it from the manufacturer. And I wanted to see the price difference. Like, am I even saving from making this rush and rash decision? So when he started punching it in, building it with all the things that I required, it came out to be about $100 difference, $100 more. But the thing is, it came direct from the factory. And the other thing is that it had a 30 horsepower more engine. Like the engine that I was on, the one was a 20 horsepower, which I wasn't planning on racing the boat, just something, a pontoon just to get up and down the river and cruise. So it had a 20 horsepower, and I thought that was enough. But when we built it, but I said it was enough because that's all they had in stock. I was like, okay, I don't need that much power. I just need something to get a few people up and down the river. So I made a decision based off what was available. But since we were building it from the factory, I said, well, let me go ahead and price it with the motor I want, which is a 50 horsepower motor. And even with the 30 more horsepower, it only came out to be $100 more. So sometimes it pays to be patient. And I asked the salesman, I says, let's say that I do take this boat today. Let's say later down the line, I want a boat, I want to upgrade my motor to a 50 horsepower. And he was like, all right, that's something we can do. You know, it's about $500 to change it out. I said, well, but how much is the motor? And he was like, well, the motor is going to be about $3,000. So I'm looking at about $3,500 more to switch it out if I went with what I didn't want, what was available, versus wait for what I wanted. But if I waited, then I can get that same motor for an extra $100. So long story short, you know, sometimes it pays to be patient and to wait on things and to not rush to get what's available. So don't settle. Don't get to your life where you feel like you got to rush. So show you it's not sitting out there. And it was a bit of a disappointment at the same time, but sometimes it pays to be disappointed during the short-term goal than it does to be disappointed for a long time. So by getting something less than what you want. So morning motivation, get up, do something, be patient. And the last thing I would say before I close is with this patience things, how do you know if it's something that you should be doing or rushing to versus you should be waiting? It's the appreciation of it. Once you accomplish something or once you do something, there's a level of appreciation. That's one type of appreciation, but then there's a separate appreciation, and it may not be monetary value, but it adds significance to your life later down the line. So when you're making that decision, you know, they talk about liabilities and assets, and you want to get away from the liabilities and get more into the assets. And I know you say, well, you just bought a boat. Isn't that a liability? No, because I think I'm going to invest in some friendships, some life things, and it's going to add value to the quality of my life. So sometimes that the benefit may not always be monetary. Sometimes it can be an experience. Sometimes it could be in just the enrichment of your life and where you're trying to go as a person. So your morning motivation this morning just went over 12 and a half minutes. So it's a bit long. So I'm going to start to learn how to cut these down. But as I said in the beginning, like I got this big head, and sometimes a lot of thoughts start running through it, and I'll get going. And then next thing you know, it's over 10 minutes. So with that being said, you have a great morning this morning. Talk to you later out here.